Hello everybody and welcome to another tutorial in camera and lens repair, and this time I will show you how you can actually fix the oily aperture plates in an old Nikkor-P Auto 2.5, and this is a little different version, but it's a 10.5 centimeter, which is quite old, but still very good. And it renders pictures quite well compared to many new clear and crystal clear lenses. Now, the lens has a problem, like we will see in short time. If I mean, the aperture plate looks pretty okay if we look here, but if I try to open the aperture plates a little, something will happen. So it's kind of, let's say, a bit sticky because there's a lot of oil in here. So you can see if I move the aperture connection pin to the camera and release it, well, it goes way too slowly. Of course, I can also move the aperture ring, and it goes, yeah, it works simply too slowly. So what to do about it? Yeah, we will see. We need some bounce of tool. A lens blower is absolutely mandatory. A bounce of tool here, which we need some screwdrivers of different diameter. First we need a 1.2 millimeter flathead screwdriver. This is a brand called Vera, a German brand, which I like, and I think it's it's good quality. There are many other brands. Then we need a 1.8 millimeter, still the same Vera. It's a bit too long, but it's okay. Yeah, I would like it to have a shorter, because then you have better control of what you're doing. And then I have a good quality screwdriver. The name are simply worked away, but it's a 2 millimeter, which is also fine in this case. A pair of dentist tool is also good, especially the one with the spade in one end. Could also be useful at the other end, but doesn't matter. A very pointy and sharp tip, which is good to make scratch on inside the lens. So it's also very good. A pair of tweezers, which is a simple one here, just a good quality stainless steel. And another one which I made myself, modified. This is a brand called Master Tool, which I think it's okay. But the point is that I filed and grind this one so it can go under the plates. So it's easy to actually grab the little pin and in that way lift it up and dig under the plate. So it will make it easier to put in when assemble the aperture assembly. A lens sucker, which is also can be useful when working with blades. You can get them in different size, which I have a set of here from something called Nordson. But I think you can get them, search for them. I will put a link in the description of this video. So now let's head off to the point here. I need to come into the take out the whole optic assembly, lens assembly, with which is all together with the aperture assembly. And we do not need to take much apart to come into that, but there are some points we need to, just to make it easier. There is one thing, we need to take it in some steps, because we do not need to scratch any lens elements. So just put this cap on. All we could actually do is, we will need to unscrew 2 screws on the back. Actually we need 3, but we need to take off, to unscrew 2 screws here. Oh, what's going on here? Some plastic thingy from this, cap. Now, unscrew 2 screws on the back, which will be this one here, and the other one, which is this one here, close to the aperture connection pin. The other one, which is the lock pin for the lens when connected on the camera, is a little different. And just to make sure you know where it sits when you put it in, it sits, you have the aperture pin here, it has to sit 90 degree from here to there. Not on the other. It could be something over here. Oh yeah, it looks like. No. It has only to sit here. Because when putting it on the camera, it will lock and cannot go any further. So that's the main thing to be sure of. So we can just unscrew those 3 screws, and for that I will use a 1.8 millimeter. We first take off the lock screw, which is a little different in the screw head, and then the other 2. The 2 millimeter screwdriver will not fit in here, so therefore it needs to be a 1.8. Maybe a 1.5 millimeter would also be okay, but well. So now, all for that. And then we can take out this ring. Of that we can use a dentist tool here to not make any damage to anything. Sometimes they can stick a little. We can just move down here, set it to something near end, and make it easier to actually try to get out here. Sometimes it's not easy. So, see, it's metal, aluminium. So that's it, and then we can put the cap on again. You see, why I do this is simply to have more control of what actually inside and it will, I mean, be much easier when putting back the lens assembly into the focusing, the lens body or whatever calls barrel. Now then we need to unscrew 3 screws here on the focusing ring. Maybe it's sometimes impossible to see because they are all black, but there's one here, and there's one over here, and there is one here. Unscrew those with a 1.8 millimeter screwdriver. So it's good with a magnetized screwdriver. In other cases it's not good, but of course. So when unscrewing this, take it out, you see, if you think, okay, I maybe could take off the nameplate, no, it will not be the way to come into it. Or even unscrew this ring, no, because there is a little set screw in here. So this is why I need to take off the focusing ring first. So it can be a little tricky, so one need to wiggle a little gently and take it off. And this is how it looks. It looks nice and fine in here. So and now we actually are into the more inner part here, and there is a mark here. I guess it sets on the factory, in the factory. I don't know, it could be a repairman or so. But now I can actually come closer into the actual things I need to unscrew. And then we set the lens to something. Let's see. We need to actually unscrew this, part of the focusing ring, which is the black one here. Unscrew it, and one can actually move the pin here just 45 degrees. So the stop pin is something like here in line with the infinity mark, because then we actually look into 3 other screws that we need to unscrew. It will say this one, and this one. And you maybe think, oh, there is another screw hole there. Yeah, we will not need it. So we need to unscrew those 3, but not yet. We needed to unscrew this tiny set screw, not tiny, it's tiny. And then we will use the 1.2 millimeter, because then it will be possible. So there, keep it safe, because then I will unscrew this, and from starting here I have to turn it something like 4.5 turns counterclockwise, and just to be sure, you put it back into the same position so the set screw can be fully screwed in again. Set a mark here, both on the front ring and on the black well, I don't know exactly what it calls, but part of the inner assembly. So now, counting from here, I will unscrew it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and something like a half. Oh, come on. Yeah. So it will come off something around here, the opposite side here. So it is. And then you see the boring which the screw sits in. So it's important you actually end it up when you assemble it again to the correct place. So now nothing really happened, because I cannot take anything out again, yet. So the 3 screws around here needs to be taken out. And the last one. So now I can actually unscrew not unscrew, but take out the full lens assembly with the aperture plates. But before doing so, set the aperture to something 22 and simply see what's happened on the back here. So we can just pull it out gently. Oh. And there is no lock, guide pin here. So what we actually do here is simply take it out, and this is how it looks. So before we continue, we just have a little look at this. So this is the actual pin that connects to the aperture connection pin to the camera, and the other one, which looks different, is the pin that connects to the aperture ring itself. So when move this, I will also move this here and open or close the plates. This pin here is actually, it should move, or the spring inside should actually release and close the aperture plates. But of course there's way too much oil in there. So we do not have to do anything more here and can put it aside. And then we will work with the blades in here. You can see there is a lot of oil here. Maybe you can see. And we can just wipe away. So where did that all that oil actually come from? Yeah. The only place it can come from is actually inside the focusing system, which is of course old grease from many years ago, or maybe not, and it will simply separate into oil that will surge into the aperture system, and of course ended up with the blades. So we will continue because we need to come in here, and we will begin to take off the front lens assembly, front lens group. So we can just unscrew it, and if the problem is, it could be that the name ring here sits way too tight, and it sits too loose actually, and the front lens group sits too tight. Well, you will need to use a lens tool. You see there is a notch here and a notch here, and simply use a lens tool to unscrew it. It's not the case here because it sits actually quite loose, so there is no problem. And you can simply unscrew it and get the whole front lens group out, which is quite big. Here we have a closer look at it. Really nice and clean. There's nothing wrong with the lens element here, so just put it aside. And then we look into the front of the aperture plates. But we also need to take out the back here, and for that, well, there sits 3 screws here on the back, there, and there. But before doing so, it will make it a lot easier for you if you set a mark here on the back. Of course, two things. The one is the pin here, the connection for the aperture ring. Set a mark here, and also on the back of the, what do you say, the part that hold the aperture, I mean the back lens ring, so you exactly know where it should sit. And just so we are here about marks, set a mark here when the aperture is closed, so you know the position here where it should sit. Because when you put it back in, well, it maybe could stick over here or there. And this pin also have to sit there in this position when putting it back into the focusing system. Now, unscrew the 3 screws with a 1.8 millimeter screwdriver. So keep them separate. It will make it easier. I mean, keep the screws separate so you know where they are or they belong to. And then the last one here. Oh gosh, problems with a magnetized screwdriver. Now, this part here can sit pretty tight. So what to do about that? Well, the famous rubber cone from Japan Hobby Tool is absolutely great for this work. So what size do we need? Not the 5, it's too small. So we need the rubber number 6. And we simply put it on here. Remember not touching the lens element, which I just did. Not a problem. And simply put it on here and have a good grip. It can sit pretty tight. And it comes loose. And simply unscrew it. I mean, the 3 screws that hold here is not really the lens here. I mean the lens ring. It's more the aperture ring here, which I just say wrong. But this ring here, I mean, this is the back lens group. Oh, funny, it can make some shape. No. So it is. So the ring that I actually loosen by taking out the 3 screws here is the ring that holds this ring here. That again hold a this this pin here. So you can see how it actually works. So the spring should close the aperture, and this one, the aperture ring connection pin, will open the aperture, and the other one should close it again if it's possible. But right now there is too much oil, so it cannot. So we need to help it closing. So this is how it works. Now, just need one here. So again, we there's one thing I should take. You see, I take some notes here. That's a kind of my scrap. I mean my script for part of it. So that's it. The thing is that we need to take out this ring here. And since I already use the 3 screws here, it should be quite easy to take out. One have to lift it out gently, and then a dentist tool is really good for that. So gently lift it out. It sits pretty tight here. So, but remember one thing, which is important, that this pin here has to sit on this side of this kind of a, I don't know what it's called, a cam or so. If you put it wrong, or it sits over here, it will not work, of course. So now we can take this out. And a thing more, there is no need for unscrewing. Oh, there's no need for unscrewing this little nut. It's not part of the problem, because you can see here it's actually pretty much alive. It will work really good. But there's one thing about it. The spring has to sit correct. So I just made a note here, just so we know what you will look into. This is how it looks. And remember the spring, which is the red here, it goes, let's say, clockwise around this pin here. So if we look here, this pin here, then the spring has to go in a clockwise direction, and it will end up here at this pin here, like I said here, this one. The other end of the spring will again go against the inside of the barrel here. So be sure to keep that in mind. Now, then we will look closer. The brass ring here that will move the aperture plates, or the aperture inner ring here, that actually move via this one, this part here, it will move the plates. So I will unscrew the little screw here, which is a long one, and just to make sure it's correct, we'll just unscrew it. It looks different than other screws in there. So, and take out the brass ring. It also sits pretty tight. So with the help from 2 dentist tools, one can actually lift up on one side and the other side at the same time. So it's actually doing like this. So there's some grease on. It looks like it's dry moly coat or something. I will not do something about that, because it's not part of the problem here. But I will clean most of it away with the isopropyl alcohol. So now here we can see how the mechanism in here is working. and close it again, so, and it can be fully closed. Yeah, there. So now I can actually lift out this ring with a dentist tool and simply dig under it. The blades will sit there, still sit there, as long as they are sticky. And so this ring, the moving part, and there looks like there is a lot of oil film here on the back, which will make the whole thing sticky. So, and for that I will clean with 99% isopropyl alcohol. So just drop it into, and yeah, we could also drop this one. It's not necessary actually, but the plates will come in there. So with a tweezer, or my special one here, the special tweezer, I will simply just move out some plates, I mean one plate, so we probably can see, and put a finger in here. So one plate will stick out, just so we can see how they sit. So this is the position it will end up with when putting in the last plate, which I will show you sooner. So out with this, the plates can only sit in one position, but you can see here there is really a lot of oil. Give them a good bath, they will need it. So this is a 6-plate version. There is also a 9-plate version, which I do not have. So, and all the plates are out. So I will just use some cotton buds with isopropyl alcohol on, and simply clean out in here. And a few of them are actually the one. I mean, it's not necessary to put the whole barrel here into the bath. It's only the inside here that need the cleaning. I mean, the oil film is really thin. So there. You can see there's a lot of dirt in here. Maybe you will see. And we simply use some cotton buds. There's no way to actually use too much. So there. So there, and there will be nothing left of oil in here. If there is too much oil, well, you could just drop it directly into isopropyl alcohol and say that's it. And use the lens blower to get the rest of dust and dirt out. So now it looks okay. I mean, in here it looks pretty good, as it should. So now we need to actually wipe the blades dry, and for that I will just use a lens tissue, lens cloth, which is really good for that. So the blades have had a good bath, and then we can just wipe them off. The blades are made of metal, not plastic, in the older one, and you can see it looks pretty okay, just like new. So there. If you do not work with gloves, you will probably set some fingerprints on it, which will stay there until next time you clean them. So it's good to work with the gloves. And this one looks really dirty. So there. So nice and fine. And then we can just put this away. So now it's time to actually put in the blades again, and hopefully put them in without any problems. Sometimes they can be a little tricky to put in, but in this lens it should be quite easy in a way. Of course, if you are not have any experience with that kind of stuff, it of course will be a problem. But see, have them in a position like this, and then you can just put it on. Oh, it was not the way it should be. So catch the hole. And then we will simply move in a counterclockwise direction. The next last blade come in, and then the last blade, which sometimes can be a challenge to put in. So what I'm doing is I simply push the first blade out to uncover the hole for the last blade, and the more I put it out, the more easy will it be to put the last blade in. So doing so here, it has to sit so it can be, so the first blade can be lifted up a little, and at the same time hold here, as we see there. I can put the last blade on, and then to make it easier, I will simply with a very pointy tip tool hold it here in the little pin here on the blade, and simply lift up the first blade and move it over the last blade. I mean, it should be possible. So, no, not yet. So there. We will just do it again. And come on, didn't work. So, one have to, I mean, sometimes it's really easy, but this was a little challenge. but we can just move the blades out to actually see how they look. So all the pins here, we can see what's going on. So now we can see all the pins that sits in the barrel here. And then to make a firm round circle here with the full aperture open, one can put a pin in here and move it around. It should be with a non-magnetic tool, just like the stainless tweezer. So the aperture is fully open. Now, then it will make it easier to put in the, I think it's called aperture control ring, that actually moves the blades. And then we can put this in. And it will be something like that. Find the correct position. And so it is. So not all pins are through the holes, so we can just move it a little. So, and then we can try to gently, where's the tool here, just use one end to hold it down, and then we can see how the blades actually is closing and opening as they should. So that's actually correct. The next thing is to put in this ring with a little cam here, and remember how the spring should sit. One end, it will say this end here should go against the barrel. The other pin here, the other end of the spring should actually go against the pin here. If not, well, if you maybe have moved the spring around like it sits something like that, it will not work, of course. So we just put it correct as they should. So now we put this ring on. Haha, we missed something. But it should be like that. Of course we we missed the brass ring. Come on, not good. But we will, so not a problem. But of course we need to put in this ring, so it will actually come in correct, and it will sit like this. So on with that, and the little screw here, not this screwdriver, the other one. So there. So the brass ring, you see, put it in, and there's a little hole, so I can just screw this screw in, and then the brass ring is locked into position. Put a 2-finger on here, when tighten the screw and tighten it gently. If you tighten it too much, it will probably break, and there is no spare parts. So fully open it, we can see we can move the ring without any problem. And then I put this on. Second time. And you see this little pin here. This little pin here is the one that I actually push on this little cam here and actually move it. So put it out to this position here, blades fully open, and now it will be easier to put this ring in. See the screw holes here, has to sit there. So again, it cannot sit wrong. Fully open, put on this and find the holes here. You probably will need to move this a little out because then you cannot press down the this ring here. You see inside here the cam, the little cam in here will sit on the top of this post here, which is not good. So therefore I have to move this a bit out and then press down the ring. So now it sits correct, as we can see here, like this. So moving this brass ring, it will move the cam there. And again, it will also push on this in here. Of course, you can only see the correct way they work when the lens assembly is put into the focusing assembly. But for now, it actually looks like it will work pretty good. So I can put in the 3 screws that hold that ring and say that's really fine. Sometimes it can be a little tricky because the screws are tight, I mean really small, but here it goes, fine. Gently tighten it. Oh gosh, only one screw. So there, and next one. Go a little backward and catch the thread. It will make it easier and you will not damage the screw or the thread in here. So there, and the last screw. So, and then it sits correct. So now it is. So if we actually work with it, seems like things are working as they should. So I can put in the back lens group and the front lens group, and everything looks absolutely okay. And there isn't any hair on in here. Doesn't look like that. And this ring just have to sit. You just tighten the back plate here. That's fine. Catch the threads to something there and screw it in. I will end it up with the same marked position as I started. So now it sits correct again, and then I can put in the front lens group and everything looks pretty good. I can just put it in. And gently tighten it, good. So, and then I can put it into the focusing assembly. And where did it went here? So, putting it back in, it should be set the aperture ring to 22, and you probably have to move this the back pin here a little to catch it, but before doing so I will just wipe away some of the oil in here, so it will take away most of the oil. Of course, if it was, if there was way too much oil, one could just disassemble it, fully disassemble the lens. I have made another video of the 105mm 2.5, which is the almost same design, almost. There you can see how you will take it apart and re-grease it. But for now, it's okay. We can just take as much as possible. I mean, there is no need for unscrewing. I mean, disassemble too much of if it's not really necessary. Because when taking out most of the, wipe most of the oil away, it will takes pretty long time before the blades will be oily again. Now, to put in the lens assembly, it will make it easier if you let it stay where it should. I mean, when I took it apart, so the stop pin here is still in line with the index mark, and the mark here, it will say all the way over here, this pin all the way over here. And then we have to fiddle a little with the aperture connection pin to the camera, and in that way align it correct. The pin here goes into the fork here with a narrow gap, and the other one of course goes into the wider gap pin, fork. So there, let's try to catch the fork, the two forks here. It can be a little tricky. But we need to catch one there. So, and sit it in here. So here we are. And you see, it's alive. And one can actually close open the aperture, and it's actually working pretty good. So how about that? I mean, it's really a good thing. So we have a working aperture again. And if it gets sticky again, well, we can just disassemble and do the exact same thing again. So that's really good. So then I will just put in the 3 screws around here and simply assemble the whole lens. Align the screw holes here. As you can see here, it's not fully aligned yet, but it will be. And the last screw goes in here. And here we are. Then we can just set it to infinity again, and then put in the front ring here. And since I know where it should sit, I can just find the hole here, the boring, and the this hole in the front ring here. I can simply, and it sits sits opposite this mark here, this boring here, where it comes off. So I just have to find the thread and then screw it in. And since I have a mark here, I will end it up the exact same position. So there. Then it's easy to screw the tiny set screw in, and I will not damage any thread or something like that. Gently tighten it. So if you over tighten it, well, you will probably damage the aluminium here to make it impossible to unscrew. Yeah. So now I will put in the back ring here, just to make sure the back lens group is covered in a way. I know I set a mark here, it's not a problem. See, there is a gap here where the aperture connection pin will go into, as you can see here. So there. Now put in the lock screw. And where should it sit? Well, yes, it should sit, as I said in the beginning, it should sit 90 degree from the aperture connection pin. It will say over here, clockwise direction. So there. Don't screw it in fully yet, because the two other screw is actually countersunk, and it will set the correct position of the ring. Just put it in. Find the thread by turning counterclockwise, and then it is there. So when I put in the first screw, the other screw will sit correct. See? Gently tighten, and then I can just tighten this a little bit more, as it should, but again, don't over tighten it. So the last thing is actually to put on just put the cover on here, cap. So I only need to put in this ring, and as there is here, this length, there might be the same in your lens, could be the mark here. So, and it's infinity. This is also infinity. When I put on the focusing ring, I should have ended up with the correct position. and I can just look through the holes here where it should sit, and simply put in the 3 black screws here, and so, and the last one. So you see, it can sometimes be a problem to put in. So it is. And the last screw here. And as you can see, there was no mark from scratching anything. And here we are back again with a fully working aperture. Snappy as it should be. So that's it. Wow, great thing. So hope you can use the info in this video. There was some errors now and then, but well, it turned out to be okay. So bye bye.